Hello everyone and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham coming to you live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. And over the next few minutes we'll take you from the United States and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. Before we get to that, here's a look at the latest headlines. Former President Barack Obama praises Harvard University for rejecting the Trump administration's demands following a $2.3 billion federal funding freeze. China orders its airlines to stop taking jet deliveries from American aerospace giant Boeing amid an escalating trade war with the United States. An explosion targeting a police truck in Pakistan's Balochistan province kills at least 3 police personnel and injures 16 others. Singapore will head to the polls on May 3rd in the first electoral test for Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, who took office just last year. And France's foreign minister warns Algeria of consequences after the North African nation expels 12 French embassy officials. We begin here in the United States, where President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs, which are targeting most of the world, are now hitting Americans where it hurts the most, in their pocketbooks. From tea and coffee to apparel, shoppers in the United States are expected to see a price hike on everyday essentials. And very soon, the next thing added to their woes will be tomatoes. The Trump administration is planning to slap a nearly 21% tariff on most of the tomatoes imported from Mexico. The tariff will be imposed in mid-July near the start of peak tomato season. And in a statement, the Department of Commerce said it intends to withdraw from the free trade agreement from Mexico. The deal, signed back in 2019, had averted any anti-dumping duties on Mexican tomatoes and ended a tariff dispute between the two nations. However, U.S. authorities now say Mexican tomatoes are unfairly priced, and such an agreement has failed to protect domestic tomato growers.
The current agreement has failed to protect U.S. tomato growers from unfairly priced Mexican imports, as commerce has been flooded with comments from them urging its termination. This action will allow U.S. tomato growers to compete fairly in the marketplace. With the termination of this agreement, Commerce will institute an anti-dumping duty order on July 14, 2025, resulting in duties of 20.91% on most imports of tomatoes from Mexico.
Now the upcoming tariff will pile onto the existing blanket tariff of 25% on Mexico's automotive, steel, and aluminum sectors. The analysts say the federal government will drive up prices of tomatoes in the United States.
It is astonishing that the Trump administration is intentionally trying to make tomatoes more expensive. President Trump won the 2024 election in large part because groceries were expensive. Who wants this policy? What share of voters want tomatoes to be more expensive?
Notably, Mexico's tomato production is year-round, making it the largest open field and shade house tomato producer. Mexico's exports over 80% of its tomatoes to the United States and is the biggest source of American farm imports. In fact, back in 2023, Washington imported tomatoes worth more than $2.7 billion. Mexico also fulfills 25% of the global demand of tomatoes, making it the 8th largest producer worldwide. And staying in the United States, a private plane crashed in the upstate New York over the weekend, killing all 6 passengers on board. The victims included a family of physicians and distinguished student athletes who were on a trip to the Catskill Mountains to celebrate a birthday and the Jewish holiday Passover. The crash took place as the plane was headed to the Columbia County Airport, and authorities tried to contact the pilot several times. However, they received no response or distress call.
During the approach at Columbia County Airport, the pilot reported a missed approach. He requested vectors for another approach, and as he is being vectored, the radar indicated a low altitude alert. The ATC controller attempted to relay this low altitude alert to the pilot and also tried to contact him 3 additional times. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful. There was no response from the pilot, and there was no distress call.
A video of the final seconds showed the aircraft still intact just before crashing at a high rate of descent into the ground. The crash is the latest of a series of air disasters that have put the American aviation industry under radar. The United States has seen more than a dozen plane crashes this year, resulting in deaths, injuries, or close calls. In fact, just last week, a helicopter broke apart in midair and crashed into the Hudson River, killing the pilot and the family of 5 Spanish tourists.
Agus, Marce, Agus Jr.,
Agus, Merce, Agus Jr., Merce Jr., Victor, you will always be with us and in our hearts. We will never forget you, and we will keep your smile alive every day of our lives. And that, I think, is the best legacy we can give you. Thank you.
A recent deadly collision between a passenger jet and a military helicopter over the Potomac River in January killed all 67 people on board.
The work has now shifted to a recovery mission. Sadly, there are no survivors. This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and in our nation's history, and a tragedy of terrible proportions. As one nation, we grieve for every precious soul that has been taken from us so suddenly.
Now, federal officials have been trying to reassure passengers that flying is still the safest mode of transportation. However, recurring accidents only contribute to the declining confidence in air travel and the authorities responsible for their air safety. According to the Associated Press poll, Americans are increasingly believing that air travel is very or somewhat unsafe, and just over half of U.S. adults have faith in the government's ability to ensure their air safety. Meanwhile, reports in late February suggested the Trump administration fired 400 personnel from the Federal Aviation Administration, some of whom had direct roles in supporting safety inspectors and airport operations. Now, with the FAA already short-staffed and the cascade of horrific headlines, concerns about air travel in the U.S. are only rising. And now moving to the war in Europe, tensions between the United States and Ukraine have intensified as President Donald Trump blamed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for starting the ongoing conflict with Russia. On Monday, President Trump claimed that millions of people have died because of 3 leaders, Russian President Vladimir Putin, former President Joe Biden, and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky.
But that's a war that should have never been allowed to start, and Biden could have stopped it, and Zelensky could have stopped it, and Putin should have never started it. Everybody's to blame.
The commander-in-chief's remarks came just days after a deadly Russian missile strike killed at least 35 people and injured 117 others in the Ukrainian city of Sumy. Now, while estimates confirm that hundreds of thousands of people have been killed or injured since Russia's full-scale invasion began back in February of 2022, President Trump insisted the death toll had reached millions.
You have millions of people dead. Millions of people dead because of 3 people. Let's say Putin number 1, but let's say Biden, who had no idea what the hell he was doing, number 2, and Zelensky. And all I can do is try and stop it.
And further taking aim at the Ukrainian leader, President Trump said Ukraine shouldn't have ever started the war with Russia because it is 20 times its size, and accused President Zelensky of always looking to obtain Western weapons.
You don't start a war against someone 20 times your size and then hope that people give you some missiles.
Time and again, President Trump has expressed a desire to end the war. In fact, yesterday, the president reiterated his stance, stating he wants to stop the killing without offering further details.
All I can do is try and stop it. That's all I want to do. I want to stop the killing. And I think we're doing well in that regard. I think you'll have some very good proposals very soon.
Relations between President Trump and the Ukrainian president have remained tense since a heated public confrontation at the White House back in February. The commander-in-chief previously labeled Zelensky a quote-unquote dictator without elections and has often echoed Moscow's claims about Ukraine's role in the conflict. As both leaders stand firm in their positions, the world watches closely, and what comes next could reshape the future of Europe and, of course, of this 3-year war. President Donald Trump is once again in the middle of a controversy, and this time it's a tall and weighty one. With a weight of 224 pounds, allegedly, and a height of 6 feet 3 inches, White House doctors have declared the president fit to run the country by releasing his medical records. But this has led to speculation over whether President Trump's listed stats match reality, or is this political image building? Our next report dives into the controversy.
What started with a royal handshake last year ended with a familiar controversy this year. In November 2024, at the opening of the Notre Dame in Paris, US President Donald Trump stood face-to-face with Prince William. Now, eagle-eyed viewers are spotting something that has been the subject of memes, debates, and late-night jokes: Donald Trump's height. The 78-year-old has claimed that he stands at a towering 6 feet 3 inches. The results of his recent physical exam released by the White House says the same. But standing next to the equally 6 foot 3 heir to the British throne, the math and the optics didn't quite add up. With the prince subtly tilting his head downward to make eye contact, Trump appeared visibly shorter, reigniting age-old whispers about his true height and whether or not there are fillers inside his shoes. However, this wasn't the first time Trump's height has come under scrutiny. At nearly 79, Trump may indeed be shrinking. Medical experts say it's common for men to lose height with age, around an inch between 30 to 70 and another inch after 80. This would place Trump at 6 feet flat, but even that hasn't stopped Trump from doubling down on the 6 feet 3 inches claim. This is the same height he had during his recent physical exam. The doctors claimed that he's in excellent cognitive and physical health.
I can confirm the president is in very good shape, as you see, on a near daily basis here. And in that vein, thank God it's Friday. It's been a very long and busy week here at the White House.
The latest White House report is the first public accounting of the president's health since January, when he became the oldest man ever sworn into office. When Trump's official height and weight were released after his latest medical checkup, 6 feet 3 inches and 224 pounds, the internet did what it does best: compared. Sports fans noted that these are the exact stats of NFL athletes like Anthony Pittman and Ben Skronek. This isn't the first time Trump has flexed those metrics. When he was booked in Fulton County Jail in 2023, his team allegedly self-reported his height as 6 feet 3 inches and weight as 215 pounds. Identical to Chris Hemsworth's Thor days. It raised eyebrows, especially considering Trump's reported 244 pounds during his presidency. Behind the numbers is a more telling narrative. Trump's obsession with physical appearance, both his and others, is well documented. From mocking political opponents' stature to boasting about the height of his children, height for Trump has always been a tool of dominance and image. With every handshake, photo op or mugshot, Trump's stature, both metaphorical and physical, continues to be dissected. In a political world obsessed with power plays, Trump's towering image might be less about fact and more about fiction.
And finally, it was a picture-perfect day on the White House South Lawn. Music playing, cameras flashing, and the 2025 national champion Ohio State Buckeyes waiting to lift their prize trophy under the spring sun. But in a moment no one saw coming, Vice President J.D. Vance turned a simple photo op into internet history with his butterfingers, and gasp, laughter, and viral chaos ensued. Here's a look at what happened.
The White House clearly had some turbulence early Monday morning. But before this oops moment, the South Lawn was alive with cheers as the 2025 college football playoff champions, Ohio State Buckeyes, had arrived. They came to celebrate their national title with President Donald Trump. The Buckies had clinched the trophy after defeating Notre Dame. It marked a hard-fought season filled with highs and lows.
That's a good-looking group behind me.
President Trump praised the team for battling through adversity.
And it's a proud day for all of us, but it's a proud day for the Scarlet and Gray. Congratulations once again. And
He also mentioned their tough 13-10 loss to Michigan in November. That was Ohio State's fourth straight defeat to their biggest rivals. Trump joked, "We won't talk about it," sending laughter through the crowd.
that team up north, we won't talk about it, but you refuse.
Vice President J.D. Vance, an Ohio State graduate, then took the stage. In a post shared by Margot Martin, who is a special assistant to the president and communications advisor, Vance was seen bringing humor to the event. Pointing to a Michigan fan, Vance said, "I don't know who let him in here. That hat's a dangerous weapon, sir," he added, making the players laugh.
The last thing that I'll say is, I don't know who let the guy over in the corner here in a Michigan hat into this celebration, but I'm about to tell the Secret Service you've got a dangerous weapon, sir. But
as the United States Marine Corps band played "We Are the Champions," excitement filled the air. The trophy, shining under the sun, stood ready on stage. It consisted of two parts, a football-shaped top and a bronze base. And together they weigh about 50 pounds, which is over 22 kilograms. Vance stepped forward to lift the impressive prize, but he didn't quite realize the top and base separate easily. He grabbed the base while Trevion Henderson reached for the top. And as they lifted it, the two pieces split apart. While Henderson managed to save the golden top in time, the base, however, slipped from Vance's hands and tumbled down. A wave of gasps swept through the players and the crowd. Some players even winced as the base rolled on the ground. Coach Ryan Day quickly stepped in to help. Together, Day, Henderson, and Vance picked up the pieces. The trophy was carefully reassembled in front of the gathering. However, Vance then held just the shining top, cradling it like a newborn. President Trump's side-eye was watching the shy vice president while the players chuckled as cameras captured the awkward moment. Within minutes, videos flooded social media platforms. Vance laughed off the fumble with a post on X. "I didn't want anyone after Ohio State to get it," he wrote. However, this is not the first time. Sports trophies, it seems, have a history of trouble.
Oh, there it is.
In 2006, Maria Sharapova dropped her US Open trophy's cap. Then in 2011, Real Madrid ran over their Copa del Rey trophy with a bus. And in 2023, Lando Norris shattered Max Verstappen's F1 trophy by accident. However, in 2025, despite the slip, the celebration continued without a pause. The Buckies remained proud of their championship journey. The band played on, and the crowd cheered louder than ever.
That's First Post America for today. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you right back here again tomorrow. I'm Eric Ham signing off from our studios here in Washington, D.C.